Make this make sense to me. I couldn't believe the mental gymnastics this professor did to justify the erasure of men and women as biological categories, and neither could Rogan. But I was even more frustrated with how he mangled postmodern thought to do it, so take a look at this exchange before we set the record straight.
Prior to the 1960s and 70s, it was the dominant belief that if you were born a woman, you were going to be a wife and a mother. And if you weren't, you were doing something unnatural, right? That if you were black, you could never be the head of a business or the president, right? You could never do math, whatever. If you were white, you should do all those things, right? Everybody's destiny was determined at birth. And everyone believed that. Most people believed that.
Okay.
So postmodernists came along and said, guess what? You know what we found looking at history? We found just what I said. I just gave you the whole postmodern argument right there. We looked at history and we saw, first of all, that all these categories have changed over time, which tells us that they're just inventions. They're just inventions that get reinvented all the time, okay? And second of all, they have served the purposes of ruling elites because they get to put people in their boxes and control them more easily, right? Oh, those people over there, those are black, therefore they should be our slaves. So it's okay for us to have them as slaves. Those women over there, we don't want them, working for NASA. So we will have a rule against women working for NASA, whatever it is, right? So postmodernists said, none of this is biological. None of this is inevitable. You are now free to do what you want as an individual. It was a liberating moment. It has become the dominant way of thinking in academia. And I have to say, in my view, it is the supreme achievement of academics ever.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, so point one, he's trying to make a case against biological essentialism and yet is doing the most biologically essentialist thing possible, and here's how. To say that the scientific recognition of race or sex differences was a roadblock to individual liberty in society is to say that these biological realities necessitate your destiny or role in society. But that has never been the case. Your roles or perception in society, whether it be a race that's held as slaves or a sex that society gave traditional gender roles, have always been a social construct on top of our immutable biology. In other words, here's how his faulty logic works. Past societies said women get pregnant and are supposed to be traditional stay-at-home moms. But since we want to liberate women from that traditional gender role, we'll just abolish the category of women altogether. This professor commits that logical fallacy at every step of the way.
Now, the problem is that these social justice warriors, so-called, on campuses, have used some of that language and taken a shit on it. So the trans movement, for instance, right, that started from postmodernism. That whole idea, right, is that, if you were born with a penis, you're a man and you should do X, Y, and Z with your life, right? The trans movement needed postmodernism to make that intervention and say, no, that's not true, right? You can actually be a woman because woman is an invention. It's a social construct. What much of the trans movement now is doing, which makes me so sad, is that they're saying that I am biologically, essentially, naturally, in my core, a woman. No one is. No one is. You can't, the whole point of this movement used to be that you get to choose your gender or choose not to be a gender. You get to move around. Your destiny is not determined for you. What a lot of the trans movement now is doing is a good word, reifying. They're making these ideas, these abstractions real again. They're making these claims that are similar to Sam Harris's claims and to old racist claims and to old sexist claims that if you're born a particular way biologically, this is who you are.
But wait, he keeps using that phrase, born a particular way biologically. Even in that postmodern ideological soup, biology is an inescapable reality. So why doesn't he recognize that the word woman or man has always been tied to that biological reality? Here's an uncomfortable fact. The trans movement essentializes gender to behavior. It's baked into their logic that there are some behaviors, societal roles, appearances, and self-perceptions that are so inside of a box of man or woman that taking them on changes the biological category you belong to. A true progressive would reject that idea because it even completely cuts at the knee of the very argument that the gay rights activists gave before this. Homosexuality defines itself as an orientation on the basis of biological reality, not some airy-fairy self-identification, and you saw that from this ridiculous statement that he made next.
Because you've heard a lot of trans people say this, right? I was born a woman. That's what they often say.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is, no one was born anything.
What? You are losing me in a huge way.
Why?
You don't think that some women are born women, and you don't think you're born a man?
No.
What are you born? Why are you a man?
For all sorts of reasons.
For all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
None of them being
well,
biological.
We just decided.
None of them being the XY chromosome. None of them being you have testicles. None of them being you have a penis. None of them being the fact that you generally gravitate towards male activities like boxing, kickboxing, aggressive things.
We just went through this whole thing.
No, you didn't.
Yoel Romero and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but you.
Why are they both men?
But you're a man.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about the broad spectrum of masculine behavior. We're talking about no one is born a man. You're not born a man. I'm not born a man.
I'm saying that no. I think
we're getting silly.
Hold on here. I think it's the category of man becomes meaningless.
Does it?
Yeah, we just did this, man.
No, we didn't. We definitely didn't do
Yoel
this.
Romero and Andy Dick are both
it's a broad category. The lines get blurry at the ends of the spectrum, and I think they cross over. The male-female lines do cross over when you get to that Kenyan runner and Andy Dick.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's so broad that it becomes, to me, pretty damn meaningless.
Well, the numbers are incredibly small at those crossover marks. You're talking about a very, very small percentage of the population.
Neither Andy Dick nor Yoel Romero are trans people, right?
Andy might be.
They are so different, though, physically in every way.
Okay, yeah.
But we both put them in this silly category called man. What the hell does that mean anymore?
He keeps bringing up this example like it proves something. Yoel Romero and Andy Dick may lie on two different ends of what society traditionally is viewed as masculine, but here's what's crucially common between them. Both of them lie on the same side of the biological wedge that runs straight through all mammalian species on this planet for the past 250 million years, which is that of sexual duality for the purpose of reproduction. Nothing about the dress they wear or how much muscle mass they have can make them hop over that wall at will. This guy makes it seem like all humans come out of a factory like a scene from that movie I, Robot, all with identical hardware ready to be reprogrammed as desired. The broad point is not all categories have inventions or social constructs. Some are just observations of objective reality about our world.
Because there are certain inventions, certain social constructs that do nothing but bad things, that do no good, and they're only social constructs, like race and gender.
Well, tell me how race and gender definition.
I'm not worried about Dobermans
especially
too much.
Gender definition. Let's look at gender definition and tell me how it's only bad. Why is it only bad to define men as men and women as women?
Because, well, if you say it's about making the biological claim, the biological connection there.
Well, making a definition, like saying a guy who is born a guy who gravitates towards male activities, likes females, all those things, by saying that that's a man, that this is a born man, and you're saying no one is.
So if you're saying if those characteristics are naturally determined, then all of us guys who don't do those things are unnatural.
It's a circular logic you can be stuck in to the end of time. But in all honesty, if this is the kind of professors that are teaching at our universities, I think we've got much bigger things to worry about. Because this isn't even postmodernism anymore. It's a sacrifice of objective truth to the altar of subjective and social identity, but let me know in the comments what you thought about this entire exchange, because this already got my head spinning from all of the mental gymnastics and big words that eventually went nowhere.